Hello, everybody, and welcome to our How to Pay for College Education as little out of pocket as possible webinar. We're very appreciative for everybody coming on tonight and logging on, and we hope you get the most out of this as possible. It's a new world for all of us. This is, generally we do this in a lot of not-for-profit American Legions and libraries, and used to giving this presentation to 40, 50 people or more at a time. It's our first time doing it as a webinar, an educational webinar online, and hope our goal for this is that you walk away with one or two or three things to help you get through this incredible process that you're going through, or getting ready to go through, or planning to go through with your child or young adult coming up. Before we get started, we'll give you a little background of how we are and how we got started on this. As long as we continue this, how we get going. My name is Jim Mazzetti. My team here in good old Florida, New York is Lori Shelberg and Lewis Neely. We've been in the financial planning and college planning world for about well over 10 years now. And how I got into it is pretty interesting. Basically, a long time ago, I started to have clients come to us and start asking, James, I got to stop contributing to my 401k or my IRAs, or we got to refinance my house. And I was always kind of perplexed at why that was happening, because I wasn't there yet. And basically the reason is that, this college cost kind of caught them all by surprise. And it wasn't that they didn't mean to plan for it, they didn't want to plan for it, but life got in the way, as it so often does. And I'm sure you all have been there in one way or another. But if you're in this realm right now of the college experience, you get it. And so the goal tonight is kind of give you that background and how to get through this, but also give you a background why I became so passionate about it and why we're doing what we do. So keep in mind that tonight's workshop that you're attending is going to be about an hour long. I try to keep it to an hour because all of our attention span is not much more than that. But the thing else, you got to imagine that we'll go through this today. There's so much information that we're going to try and get out within that time period. It's just not possible to get all the things out that we want to get out in just one hour educational webinar. So we encourage you to take advantage of meeting with us or going through your stuff, and we'll go through that in a little bit. But more back to why I became so passionate about this, and this is why. So these are my two children. Aaron's on the right at Seton Hall, and that's Kaylee on the left, who is now going to her sophomore year in Potsdam, New York. And Erin just graduated Seton Hall. I'm very proud of her, and now she's heading off to Fordham for her grad school. And but if you look at those schools, Erin was going to Seton Hall at $58,000 a year. Kaylee is going back to, as I messed up there, I apologize, at Potsdam, which is like $25,000 a year. This is Lori Shelberg, who works with us here. That's her son, Brian, who goes to the University of Rochester at $70,000 a year. Casey, who just also got done with her freshman year at Manhattan College at $60,000 a year. And Robert on the right just graduated Manhattan College this last year at $60,000 a year. So yeah, these are insane numbers. So if you think that's bad, this is our combined group. We are now a mixed family, and now we literally have 4 children in school at the same time. So you can imagine, we understand, I personally understand, what the pain you may be going through. We get this. We live this every day. And like you, I don't think we're totally prepared for it. So we're hoping to help people educate on what to do and how to get through it. And tonight you're going to learn a few techniques on hopefully help you get through there. And this is our group. So you can imagine right now is $190,000 per year. Now, if you think that I am paying that or we're paying that as a family, I wouldn't be needing to do this or give this information out. We're not. And because we utilize these techniques out there, and we had to learn on the fly. And now we're hoping we can impart that information to you. You think that's bad? Lewis, we mentioned at the beginning of this, who's an associate artist, have been working with me for many, many years now. His son, there's Dominic. He's got 12 years of college degree, and we're looking at that might be $500,000 if the rate of college increases continues on the same pace that is continuing right now. So doing all this for as many years as we've been doing this, our research of parents that we've talked to over the years, their biggest concerns kind of gone like this. So missing deadlines, making mistakes, not having enough time to do all the planning that's involved and everything that's involved in the college process. And if you're going through this, you get that there's a lot of things. The top three that time after time they keep coming back to us are developing a plan to pay for college, doing something that will hurt their child's chances of in college admission process, and then doing something that will cause them to not get the most amount of financial aid possible. They tend to be the biggest concern, the top three concerns we hear time after time again. We'll address as most of those as we can. Okay. No kidding. This slide is going to show you the college costs are skyrocketing. No shocker there. But what is included in all that college? Well, college includes, tuition, room and board, living expenses, fees, computers, phones, etc. And if you look at like a 4-year school, a state of New York SUNY school right now, that can cost up to $100,000 for one child, right? So 4 years, $25,000 a piece, $100,000. If you go to a semi-private or private school, this can be $240,000 or more, right? And how many of you on this call tonight, this webinar tonight, have more than one child, right? Raise your hand. Think about it, right? I've got 5. So it's crazy. So think about the fact that also when I started doing this, and the costs are continuing to rise. When we started this, the process, the average cost increase per year was 2 to 3%, or 3 to 4%. 3% for public schools, 4% for private schools. And now that has just increased from 6 to 8%. Now, given the current world we live in post-COVID-19, or I don't even think it's gone away yet, we're going to see a little retraction. A lot of the schools we're seeing today are keeping their tuition from last year the same. But we know that may be just a temporary stop at the moment. So you have to know that going into this process. The number you start with, that your child gets admitted into, whatever school it may be, is not the number you're going to end with 4 years down the road or 5 years down the road. So you have to keep that in mind, and you have to develop a plan in order to address that and deal with it, because you know it's coming, right? So how's the family supposed to pay for this, and how are we supposed to come up with all the money to figure out how to get through and pay for all these costs associated with colleges? Well, obviously, 1, savings. Loans is number 2. Scholarships. Go to a cheaper school. We don't believe in that necessarily. And skip college altogether. Well, you didn't sign on to this webinar tonight if you weren't committed to help your child go to college, get into college, and all the things that go along with it. So we don't believe in that whatsoever, and we'll get to that tonight. So we kind of laugh at this, but savings is the first one, right? So any of you on this call that have about $200,000 burning a hole in your pocket, please give us a call. We'd love to help you out. We kind of made that kind of a joke, but these things that you're doing to be good human being, good citizen, putting away for a rainy day. None of us knew that just having $8,000 to $10,000 sitting in a rainy day account could actually cost you anywhere from $500 to $2,500 in grant money. And that's crazy, because none of us, want or didn't think that, doing what we're supposed to do, which is save for our college, our children's college education, or save for our own retirements, or putting money away in case the boiler breaks or the roof needs repair, would actually hurt us in this process. But unfortunately, it does. In some situations, it can hurt you dramatically. So the whole point of this is you need to know how to play this game. And I call it a game because it's the only way to help get through this. But as long as you know the rules, you can play by the rules, right? So as though as much possible in this process, the better off you'll be. So know the rules before you play the game. All right? There's several different ways to borrow money for college. And we go through these kind of, forgive me as we go through, but you get why I do what I do this. So if you're going to borrow money, would you rather get a tax deduction or not get one? Obviously you want. Have a fixed monthly payment or a variable increase in payment. Any of you remember that those mortgages from way back when had these called teaser rates, that the interest rate started out like 0 and then rapidly increased? You know what I'm talking about. This same concept applies to college loans. All right. Have a interest-free student loan or a high-interest student loans. Well, believe it or not, there are loans there that the government's willing to give you that have zero interest associated with loan during the time the child is going to college. So why wouldn't you take advantage? And we'll get into more specifics on that later, right? And then last but not least, have to take a loan each and every semester to have the funds readily available prior to college beginning. Well, there's so many loans out there, believe it or not, we're going to get into this, that parents just rush to make sure that Bobby can go to the school of their dreams, and they'll sign any document out there. And then next thing you know, they're committed to these variable rate loans. And each one of these loans is per semester. So everyone's different at different interest rates, at different amortizations, and blah, blah, blah. So it goes on and on and on. So we use example, anybody who's been to Best Buy or purchased something where they'll actually let you, defer the payments for a time period and then it's due and low interest rates. Well, same concept here we use is that, listen, if the schools or the government is willing to give you a low interest rate or free interest rate loan, why wouldn't you take that, even though you have the money setting aside? And what I say about that is, it's much better to have your money in your bank, even though you have an earmark to pay this loan off later. Why wouldn't you do that? Right? That way it's better, it's in your control, and you get to decide to do with the money instead of having it outside the money. So once again, it's a big game, but learn how to know the rules and figure out how to apply them. We'll get through that. So scholarship. Normally when we have people in front of us, we kind of do this as a guessing game on how many out of $275 billion that's available in student aid out there, how much comes in the form of the private scholarships. And a lot of people are blown away by the fact that it's only around 2 to 2.5 to 3% in the form of scholarships, where you're actually getting money from the universities or some other thing. So it's not as much as thing. But the good news is there's places that can look for those scholarships. One we put on the screen here too, and I'd urge you to write it down, is www.fastweb.com. This is a great place, and I'm sure there's many others that your students are probably much more aware of than we are. But it's a great place to go go into FastWeb, fill out a profile, and it'll match up with scholarships that fit you and your family. We have some bizarre scholarships out there. We have for people being left-handed and for second son on the third fireman eating, and they're bizarre. But they're out there. And, but the key to this, remember that they're $200, $100, $500, maybe $1,000 scholarships. And where we know that the average school we're talking about over is $25,000 a year, low end, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 at the high end, $500, $1,000. Not saying it's not a lot of money or it's not worth pursuing, but it's not where you as a parent should be focusing your time. And we'll get into that throughout this presentation. And then just like Las Vegas Day, I'm sure all of you have heard about the son and daughter or the friend that got the full ride to Stanford and so on and so forth. But remember, that's 2 to 3% of the population. So yes, your son or daughter may get some scholarships, but it's unlikely that they're going to get a full ride. So you have to figure out how you're going to make up the difference, okay? And keeping that in mind throughout the world that you're living in today, and it's changing rapidly. So go to a cheaper school or skip college over there. Obviously, we don't agree with that, and we'll get into why cheaper schools may not necessarily be why you should focus on. Don't focus on the sticker price of the college. There's much more to it than just what they're showing on the top, right? Okay. So how do I determine what my family's eligibility is going to be? And we get this a lot, the truth about financial aid. And people ask me, I don't even want to fill out financial aid form. I'm not going to get anything anyway. And it's because we don't know the real information. And so we go through this exercise, myth of reality. I make too much money. Myth of reality. Bottom line is, you may make too much money, but believe it or not, we have clients that are making $200,000, $300,000 that are still getting merit-based financial aid, depending on the school or institution they're going to. The other is, my child is not a good student. Believe it or not, for the federal side of the thing, FAFSA, their grades do not matter on the merit-based financial aid portion of this thing. For schools, obviously, they may be a little bit better on the aid side of things if they're better or more qualified students. Schools going to want them more. But for the FAFSA, it's not important. They don't look at it. I own a home. Well, 50% of the schools out there don't care if you own a home. They don't even ask you the question on the financial aid form at all. 50% do ask who are they going to, and we'll get into more depth throughout the presentation. It's a quick and simple process or an easy process. Well, a lot of times, obviously, easy is a little word that people use when they go through this. Filling out the FAFSA or the profile form. It can be complex, it can be complicated, questions are tricky sometimes, and they just don't use easy as the word that they use when they're filling out this process. And college aid officers would help me, or high school guidance counselors would help me in this process. Well, high school guidance counselors are great people. I mean, my sister's a guidance counselor. They do an amazing job. But if any of you know anything about this or been involved in the schools, how many students is a high school guidance counselor helping? Many. Sometimes it's one kid to 40 kids to one counselor. So it's tremendous. Not that they want to help, they just don't have the physical time to help you through this process or even the financial part of this thing. They just don't know that process. They're very good at finding or helping your student find the right school or pointing in the right direction, but they don't know about the financial side of this thing. And then the college aid officers will help you. Well, let's talk about that for 2 seconds. It's a very important part of this thing. Some people we talk to on a regular basis or work with our clients many times. They go, I'm just going to go to the college aid officer and tell them, this is what I got. What can you do for me? Well, let's think about that for 2 seconds. Who does the college aid officer mean? It's the word, the college. And let's also understand that all these colleges, they're a for-profit institution, right? They want your son or daughter to question, right? But their job is to make and bring in students with money. So if you go and give them all your information, they know what you got now. So you got to know the plan and how to approach this and what's the best strategy in order to get the most amount of funds from the school or institution you're looking at, what they will actually give on a regular basis. You'll see every year colleges have to report to the IRS what their average award is for that school. And the neat thing about that is that information is out there. We have a proprietary program that tells us what that information is and helps us program the system to help your family figure out what's the best fit financially and otherwise. So we'll go through that. So college aid officers, great people, but listen, remember, who do they work for? Who work for the school? This slide shows you, listen, there's $275 billion of financial aid out there. That's amazing. It's a lot of money. And what it really shows is that there's more money being paid out in aid than people are actually paying out of pocket. So that's good news so far right now, okay? And then the $64,000 question. This is very important. So if you're attending the webinar, write this down, take the time to understand this. So how does my family get their fair share of aid? Well, here's the formula right here in front of you. Cost of attendance and everything, a lot of things in the college process, they're acronyms. It's like almost like the military. It's cost of attendance, COA, minus the expected family contribution, EFC. Okay, so cost of attendance, as we said before, tuition, room and board, meal plans, travel expenses, lab fees, that's all in is what they consider cost of attendance. Minus the expected family contribution, EFC. This is derived from your parents' assets, your mom's assets, the kids' assets, dad's income, mom's income, the kids' income, how many children in the family, who's the oldest parent, how many children are going to school, et cetera, a million little calculations on that. And what happens most time is the families fill out this FAFSA, which again can be confusing for them, and they send it into FAFSA. It comes back what they call the student aid report, sergeant report, and they get this number of the right hand side says your expected family contribution is X, and the parents go, what? How can they possibly think I can afford to pay this amount of money with 3 kids, a mortgage, 2 car payments, dog, cat, you name it? Well, they don't really care. They just base a formula based on your income and your assets, and they come up with the CFC. So how do you get to COA minus expected family contribution will equal your need? So if the cost of attendance of a certain university is $30,000 and your expected family contribution, the EFC, is $20,000, you would actually have a family need of $10,000. You'd be eligible for $10,000 of financial need-based aid. So our objective in this entire program is strategies and techniques to actually lower the expected family contribution if you know what you're looking at and the institutions you're looking at. And obviously, the lower the expected family contribution, the more financial need-based aid you could be qualified for, all right? So all those things come into play. There's 3 kinds of families that we run into on a regular basis. And we call them, there's 3 different categories. Category 1, families with a total financial need. This is category 1. This is a family based on their income and their assets and their current situation. They will literally qualify for almost 100% of the time for all aid. A lot of free money that will come their way. And just because, listen, their income status, their family status qualifies them for so much of that aid coming. But the majority of the people that we see in our working with every day in our firm is what's called a Category 2 family. This family they'll get some aid, no aid, or a lot of aid, depending on what school they choose, how they arrange their assets and their income and position them. And you'll see that on the webinar tonight, the majority of the people we talk to, it's designing it for them in the college or institution they're looking at. So this Category 2. And it's very important that you can be amazed what you can do if you take the time to do it and look at it and be proactive. Then there's Category 3. These are families, quite frankly, have been very blessed. They make a lot of money. They have a great income. They have great assets. Well, but they may not qualify for based on merit-based, need-based aid tonight, but there's a lot of merit-based money out there as well. And given, again, the situation we're in this day and age with post-COVID-19, the world that we know it, there's a lot of things that there's negotiations that can go on with the college or universities that you're looking at. So keep that in mind. Even there's tax designs where you can actually get a tax break if you set it up properly. Where, listen, if you reduce your income by $3,000, it's like getting a scholarship for $3,000. So all in the process of doing this, you'll find out there's a lot more to it and a lot more things you can take advantage of that maybe you just didn't know about. And then here's the thing. We weren't going to put this slide, but I thought it was very important. And the reason I do this is that, all of us are faced with this challenge of not only putting away for our retirement, but putting Bobby and Susie through school at the same time. And as much as we love our children, the fact of the matter is they've got 30 years to figure out how to deal with this, and we may not have 30 years of working life left. So the point of this slide is that when we're deferring funds that otherwise should be going to or would be going into retirement for our retirement or the family's retirement, it could be dramatic. So the example here is assuming that you go to a $100,000 public school and you took that $100,000 and you no longer have it in the bank or in your 401k or IRA is working for you, and you only have 15 years left to retire. That's $167,760 that you will no longer have access to, or you will not be there for your retirement. Now, everybody on this webinar today, obviously, literally, you step in front of a bus for your child. That's why you're here. That's why you get up every morning and do what you do. That's why I do it. But at some point, you really have the hard conversation with yourselves and your children that how much are we going to be able to contribute to that college education? But more importantly, where are we taking the money from? And I think a lot of times we get just so funneled into this process that I don't want to disappoint them. We just do whatever we got to do. And you can see that making that mistake can be dramatic. And if you look at your 30 years of retirement and you're looking at one of the private elite schools, it could be $800,000 to $1 million plus. That's no longer in the key for you down the road. So keep that in mind, all right? And then where to go, we look at this thing, where to go for the colleges, where to get money in the colleges. Well, there's four main sources of college aid out there. First one is the federal government. The federal government, these are your, what we call the Pell Grants, the staff loans, work study. Work study is a fantastic thing, by the way. Highly encourage you to encourage students to get a work study grant if possible. And the way I say this is, listen, Bobby's working at Wally Mart and he makes $5,000. And depending on the institution is looking at, that $5,000 may hurt him next year in financial aid. For a work study, majority of the time, they go to work in the English department, answer the phone twice a week maybe. They're getting paid to do the homework for the professor, right, or at the professor's desk. So it's a huge bonus, and it doesn't count against them. So there's that. There's the staffer loan, which we'll get into in more depth going down here. It's a great loan, but it's really the only loan that's really in the student's name, only name. Hence the student loan, staffer loan, that's it. That's the only one in the student's name. Every other loan, by the way, is whose name? Who signs on that? That's it. That, right? Then we have the state government. Every time to time will come out with special programs. And I live in the state of New York, where they one time they really needed nurses badly, so they came out with a program for that. And then the last one I really remember is the teachers, and they still have this going on thing to somewhat of a degree, where if you go out and agree to teach at a lower income school in a certain areas of the city or the area and the state for that matter, it will forgive whatever loans you have. That's what great design, as long as that's what your particular student wants to do. Then the majority of, this is the key to this thing, the majority of all funds, all college-related, merit-based, financial aid-based, is given by the college or the university themselves. Right? If you think about that, you know, they make, he who has the gold makes the rules. And it's very simply set just like that. So you've gone through this process, you've gone to any of these schools yet, and done any college visitations. How many of you have gone there and went, what a dump? Not many. They're beautiful, right? Great floors, audio visual stuff up the wazoo. It's amazing stuff, right? These colleges have done very, very well because, again, remember, they're a business, okay? They're in the business of bringing in your revenue and giving, in part, giving your child an education. Then we move on to private sources. So private sources, these are, private Parent Plus loans, which we'll touch more about in the next slide. These ones you have to be very, very careful about, especially the Parent Plus loan. I highly advise you don't go anywhere near that. You have to, and I'll show you in a minute. But also there's Discover cards. There's many people out there that give you on the private side of this thing, but they're credit based, as most loans are these days, and then you're in their parents' name. But they're out there. We say when we work with people all the time, college funding is paying for college is not a paying problem. Somebody generally will give you the money. It's just at what cost and at what rate, and how hard is it going to be to get rid of that loan. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars that just don't go away. So you got to remember that in this process, especially in the Parent Plus loan, it's yours, and it shows up in your credit report. All these loans show up in your credit report as your loans, your debt. So you think about buying another home, well, guess what? It's there. Buying another car, it's there. It's yours. So keep that money. Remember, only 2% of the aid that's ever giving out there comes in the form of free money or scholarships wise. So to talk about that $200 or $500, do not, as a parent, spend your time looking for the $200 to $1,000 scholarships. That's your student's job. That's their thing. They're going to go out and find those scholarships that help them pay for books or some other things they may need. Your job as a parent is to figure out how to get the biggest bang for your buck from the institution and get the lowest cost for your student to go to that university. Okay. Here's an example of a client that we worked with, and very unfortunate circumstance, but single parent, and didn't want to disappoint Susie. So went out, got a private education loan, and you'll see she got approved, but you'll see the loan amount here is $55,684. That's for 1 year. The interest rate was 12.875. Outrageous, right? Especially in today's rate. But the more important part of that is if you look at during the payback period of this loan for 1 year, that finance charge is $136,000. So 1 year of college cost mom $192,337 because she didn't want to disappoint her daughter or didn't have the resources or the people to tap to help her in this process to find out where the best loans or how the best strategy was to pay for school. So these things are out there. You don't want to get caught in this trap. You need to do your research and take the time to figure it out. Okay. So where do we begin? So we laugh about this. So get to know the FAFSA. Now, this is a free application for federal student aid. First off, most time you got to do this, right? You don't get any aid unless you apply, and that means filling out this form. And for the most part, it needs to be filled out correctly and fully. There used to be a statistic out there that we had, I haven't seen it in a while, but we used to ask, we found out, how many FAFSAs, what was the average amount of FAFSAs that were filled out incorrectly? And the number was staggering. It was like 60, 70% of the time, the FAFSA was just filled out incorrectly because, again, they're tricky questions or wasn't sure of the answer. I didn't have all the income in front of me, all these things. But sometimes you got to watch out for that because if you fill it out correctly and it gets kicked back, it could cost you so much more than just loss of financial aid funds. It may mean because you go to the back of the line. So we looked at that pie before, that $275 billion in financial aid. Seems like an incredible amount of money out there, but it goes like this: first come, first serve. So the FAFSA opens up in October now. It used to be back in January, and they changed it, thank God, because people just didn't have the tax returns done. Now they're using, the window opens in October, and we encourage our people, our friends and family and clients all the time to get it done as soon as possible, to get it into the institution, so you get that FAFSA in to where it goes, so you have your shot at getting a fair share of whatever financial aid money out there is there, right? You don't want to get kicked back 4 to 6 weeks because it wasn't filled out correctly, and and now you got to start over. So you don't want that to happen. And back, sorry I skipped it, but the other thing about the FAFSA is it has to be filled out each and every year. It's not just one and done, so keep that in mind. So the other, beyond the FAFSA, is called the CSS profile form. This is many of the privates use this school. They want both forms. They don't want just the CSS profile. They want the FAFSA form, and they want this form asks more questions, more in-depth questions. They ask about home equity, details on your income, your assets and expenses. And you have to know, and more importantly, the FAFSA and the CSS really have to match up. So they're looking for inconsistencies in these forms. You really don't want that. You want to make sure they match up as much as possible. It's a little bit more complex than the FAFSA when you're doing it, but still doing it. I'll tell you, there's many times when we do it to clients, it takes us a good, I think, about 2 hours to fill out the CSS profile form. It's pretty that long and that in depth, but it can be done. And beyond that, there's these schools that have the FAFSA, they have the institutional form, and they have this institutional form, not just the CSS profile form. The institutional form. This institutional form is just like everything else, but they can ask their own questions because it's their money they feel they're giving it away. And we had a client tell us that one of the questions they had on this form was, what was the year and make of your mother and father's car? Think about that, right? So they're looking for reasons not to give you money. So if you claimed on the forms that you didn't make any money, but you're driving around 2020 Lexuses, guess what? They're going to go ding. Maybe that doesn't make sense. So keep that in mind when you're doing it. And then the other thing is how to apply for aid. Well, there's additional forms. If you have your own business, you want to absolutely get involved, get your accountants involved right up front. There's supplemental forms you have to put in. Or if you have your own farm, and any of you on this webinar that own your own farm, good for you. We've had a lot of success with people that own farms. They tend to get a lot of aid when they're in this process for some reason, somehow. And then last but not least, I mentioned at the beginning of this that I am a divorced parent, now remarried. And a lot of times the question comes up, divorced parents, when they're filling out the FAFSA, whose information do they put on there? Is it biological mom and new stepdad and biological father? And then people go, well, that would make sense, right? Because biological father is responsible for the son or daughter, right? Well, actually, it's not correct. And by putting or combining that information, their incomes, you're artificially increasing the income, and you could kill yourself for any financial aid there. So the real answer to this is technical, is where the child spends the majority of his or her time. So if she is living with biological mom and new stepdad, and they're 55% of the time, that's the information or financial information that goes on the FAFSA. You have to look at this. Sometimes it may make more sense that Bobby or Susie goes to live with biological dad because the biological dad is only making $60,000 a year, where mom and dad combined are making $200,000 a year. So little things. So if you're thinking about getting divorced, it might be a good idea. And then, more importantly, not all colleges are created equal. And this is where you're going to kind of do the nitty-gritty and separation between this institution and that institution, because not all colleges are created equal. And this is why. Some of the schools you're going to be looking at or applying to, they'll meet 100% of whatever need-based aid you may be entitled to. Others will only give you 30 to 50%. And some will give you nothing at all, right? So the important thing about when you're getting this aid is what percentage of the gift aid that the college is going to give you, and how much of that is free money or as loans. And this often makes, we point this out on a regular basis, this often makes the more sticker price expensive school actually become cheaper to go to than the lower sticker price school. And you'll see that in an upcoming slide. It'll define it a little bit more. So again, we have the proprietary software we use on a regular basis to actually figure out and shows us what the average award is for that school. And it helps us figure out what school will make more financial fit better than A or B school when you're going through this process. So know the stats before you apply, okay? And here's an example of this. So anybody on this webinar, you probably have heard of the school Northwestern and probably also about Kent State University. You'll see on the left-hand side that, and this got to update this slide, but I know that Northwestern isn't $65,000 anymore. I know it's more $70-something thousand a year, but for this example, here we go. $65,844. This expected family contribution, this family's expected family contribution is $7,878. So they have a need of here of $57,966 of need to go to Northwestern. Well, the good thing about Northwestern here is that they meet 100% of that need, right? And we'll get into that in a minute. But now on the right-hand side, you got Kent State University. Obviously, we don't have to be math major here to see that the cost of Kent State University is a lot less, $25,000 a year. But the expected family contribution is the same across the board. So when you get the EFC back after filling out your FAFSA, that number is universal for whatever schools you're applying to. So their expected family contribution here is $7,878. So they have a need for Kent University of $17,552. The difference though here is that Kent only needs 55% of whatever that need is, right? So that's $9,653 or $7,899 short of whatever the cost is to go to that school. And they're only, the free money here is only 41% of that. The rest is self-help. So let's jump to the bottom here. I'll go back over really Northwestern. They're meeting 100%, and 87% of that money they're meeting is free money, and 13% is that. So expected family contribution for Northwestern University is $7,878. That's the check that this family is going to write to go to Northwestern University. Kent University is $7,878 is EFC, plus the unmet portion of the need, which is $7,899. So the total expected family contribution, which is the money you're going to have to pay to have your son or daughter go to Kent State University in this situation, would be $15,777. So this is the key to not getting caught up on the sticker price. And we say sticker price a lot. I'm sure everyone, or the majority of you people out there, have bought cars before. How many of you have paid sticker price? Why? Because it's all negotiable. And we're going to get into that too. These are for-profit institutions. I said it once, I'm going to say it a million times. You can negotiate this process for your son or daughter, and you need to. You can do it. All right. So the negotiation, sorry, here we go. How to get to colleges to increase your award offer. It's not uncommon, but that some schools will miss award aid packages. You don't see that too often these days. And the whole point of that was that sometimes they'll give you more money than you think you're entitled to. You don't see that very often today, especially in given circumstances. They're doing under-awarded aid packages. What I mean by that is that when you're doing the FAFSA, the unfortunate thing about the FAFSA is there's no scorecard, right? They don't come back to you and say, listen, you really didn't need to give us this information, or you inflated the number when it should have been this, and therefore your expected family contribution is higher than it actually needs to be. No, they don't care. That's not their job, right? So you got to know that these schools are out there and you're looking at FAFSA. You want to make sure it's correct. But another part of the under-award aid packages, here's an example. We know this one family that Johnny wanted to go Ohio State from Dable. Johnny's going to Ohio State. He's been wearing the colors and he can't remember. So when they're filling out the FAFSA, they put Ohio State in, they send it in, and the college financial aid officer looks at this and goes, wow, Ohio State. And there's no other schools listed on this FAFSA form. What do you think the school's going to do? Even if you were entitled to $15,000 or $20,000 a year, well, the college is going to say, why don't we just give him $5,000? He's still coming, right? So when you're filling out this FAFSA, you should absolutely write this down too. Make sure that you're putting down like schools in as far as competitiveness to the school your child is applying to, or all the schools are. You want to make sure that the other schools that are looking or reviewing this FAFSA see that they're in competition from the get-go. They know that they're not a shoo-in that Johnny or Susie is coming here regardless. Key. They want to know. You want to make sure they know at the get-go that they're in competition. If they want your son or daughter, they have to put their best foot forward or be prepared to negotiate. It's So we want these other schools to know they're competing, because again, they're in the business of competition here. They're in the business of education. That's how they make their revenue. All right. So financial aid leveraging. This was quoted in Money Magazine a bunch of years back, but actually not that long ago. But 65% of private schools and 27% of public schools engage in financial aid leveraging. This is a process used by the universities to determine how little aid needs to be given to that particular student in order to make them become. We touched on the screen slide before that. So again, keeping this fresh in front of your mind, that they know, even though they have so much money to play with, if they can entice you to come for 10 grand when you actually were entitled to 20, and you didn't know their average reward was 20 because you didn't have the resources to find out what their average reward package was, you just wouldn't know. So know the information going in, but prior to applying to the schools you're looking at. Here's another example of, I mean, we kind of touched on the fact that it's a business, right? Well, this is RIT, is one of our clients, just recently asked in 2019, and you'll see that the RIT grant was a total of $9,700. The subsidized direct loan, which is a Stafford loan, by the way, was $3,500. The unsubsidized portion of the Stafford loan was $2,000, and the federal work study was $2,800. So the total financial aid package for the entire year was $18,000. So amount due in student aid was like 44 grand, but we knew based on the students' academics and other, quite frankly, qualities, athletic and otherwise, that RIT could give more. So we actually wrote them an appeal letter, and there's a technique to doing an appeal letter. Everybody can do it, by the way, but there's certain wordsmithing that you want to put in these letters to get their attention, have them look at it, take a second look at it. So we did this, and in 4/18/2019, we were lucky enough to get the grant increase another $6,000 up. So, you got to ask. You got to know to ask, and you got to know, if you can, what that average award would be based on that student's academics, their SAT scores, or ACT scores, or GPA. All those things come into play because there's so much involved in this college admissions and paying for college process out there. But it's there. You can do it. So know the information, right? And the other thing is knowing the financial aid loopholes. And basically the point of this slide is that it's perfectly legal and ethical to make the rules work for you, right? It's the same principle CPAs use to help their clients save money on taxes. This is no different. The difference is that knowing the loopholes or the techniques and strategies can save you and your family thousands of dollars. Just think about it. If you could save $4,000 a year, right? That's several $1,000s a year, right? It's $16,000 the family doesn't have to come out of pocket for, just because you took the time to figure out the rules and how to apply and negotiate with the school. So know that going forward. And here's an example again, another kind of example of this family that took advantage or was proactive in dealing with their FAFSA and their assets and their income and so on and so forth. So you got family A, $80,000 in income, $60,000 excluding the home and assets, equity, home equity about 100 grand, 4 kids and 4 people in the family, 1 going to school. Their financial contribution is 28,703. The family B, they were proactive in adjusting some of their designs, their assets, their income, and so on and so forth. And they got their financial contribution down to $16,442 a year, which again is $12,260 per year, or 50 grand over 4 years. So that's substantial. It's not chump change. It's not at all chump change. That's real money by being proactive and taking advantage of what's out there. All right. Section 529. I mean, obviously, I wish you guys were all in the audience, but I'm sure many of you have heard about 529 plans, and we always laugh at what they are cracked up to be. And I'm not going to get into their performance and so on and so forth. But what are the real benefits of having a 529 besides the fact that you get a tax deduction for it, and whatever the growth is tax free when you use it for higher education. But sometimes when you look at this, you see in the federal methodology, it's a great strategy because it doesn't count against you. But when distributing their own aid, the colleges I'm talking about, when they see the 529 plans, when they come across, they go, Do you think they're looking at the 529 plan and you get $40,000, $50,000 in your 529 plan, that they're not looking at it as a resource, as a college financial aid officer? Sure they are. There's $50,000 that they know you have. They're not telling you to get rid of it, but sometimes we look at this, the impact of that money is either hurting you or helping you, depending on the institution. Some institutions look at it as an asset. Some institutions look at it as income. They look at it differently, and you have to know what institution is looking at it in which way. And sometimes it makes sense to use the 529 all in the first year, because remember, you have to do the FAFSA each and every year, right? You got to submit it. And there's a good reason for that. We keep harping on that, but situations change, and especially given the world we live in. So you're employed one moment and you're unemployed the next, right? So that's why the situation, the FAFSA gets done each and every year, because situations change. So you got to look at that. Sometimes it makes sense to get rid of them altogether because there was no gains, or virtually no gains on it, and didn't count against you. But sometimes it says, no, you know what? We're going to use this because the school doesn't look at this thing as, until I use it as an asset. Maybe you just use it all in senior. That way they can't recapture. So many strategies and techniques out there that you can use to take advantage of what's and how to put your kid through, a child through college. It's just, they're there. You got to find them. And again, we're going through the different sections of the code here. You got to enter the value of the assets held in the Section 529 plans, where they established for the student by someone else. Those are the grandparent. All this to put a 529 plan in place for your child. If so, did you know about it or not know about it? You're supposed to know about it. Again, maybe just sitting out there in la la land, and when you use it may be the difference of getting more money or less money, depending on the timing. Then Section 1523, enter the estimated amount that will be withdrawn for that student in 2011, 2012, or whatever year you're going to school. And the other thing to remember about FAFSA is when you're putting that information, if you have 3 kids and they all have $10,000 in 529 plans, the college financial aid officer looks at that as one number, because that's $30,000 of funds that you could use for your child, the oldest child, lucky child, that's going to college. Even though in our heads, those are all sectioned off. Well, remember, not every kid's going to go to school, so they look at that as a resource. Most institutions look at that as a resource. So keep that in mind. And are they ready for you? Again, you got to look at these things. It makes sense to do it. Does it make sense to not keep it, get rid of it? Make sure you're talking to a competent college funding advisor to examine all the things you're going to have to put forth to the colleges before you give it to them. And look at your entire package before you send it out, to have a second pair of eyes look at it and make sure it's set up in the most proper, efficient, effective way for you and your family. These are educational law amendments. These are the things that keep accountants and lawyers busy. But the importance of this is where all the rules come from. This is where all the laws and things that dictate whether we get money or don't get money. The College Cost Reduction and Access Act of 2007, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009, the American Opportunity Tax Credit extension of 2011, the CARES Act now of 2020. That's now the new piece. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to impact us or not impact us. The point is you need to understand these complex laws and tax regulations and how they're going to impact you positively or negatively in this process, and what to watch out for. And getting the maximum out of college under the confusing and complicated tax laws is no easy task. No kidding, Charlie. So taking advantage of one of the current tax provisions actually costs you by reducing the amount of aid you would otherwise qualify for. Maybe. Should you elect the American Opportunity Tax Credit, commonly called the HOPE tax credit? You make too much money to qualify for the American Opportunity Tax Credit. Should you refinance your home to pay for college? What are the restrictions on IRAs used for college expenses? The key to this, again, is can you answer all these questions? Maybe or maybe not. But if you can't, you really need to try and work with a professional, whether it be your accountant or somebody that's in this niche field, to make sure that you're getting as much as you can for your family and your child. And how not to become a casualty of the current college tax laws and regulations. Start your financial and tax planning early or now. People ask me, when should I start this process? And we often kind of joke about it, but we go, when you got the test back, when you found out you were pregnant, that's the problem is, life gets in the way and things go quickly. And next thing you know, we're here. So, Wish we could, ideally we'd love to have sophomores and work with families of sophomores and freshmen. The reality is we're seeing most of the families are working with the juniors and senior years. And while we're on that, there's this thing called the base year. And what the colleges look for is they go, hey, listen, financially, we're looking at the second half of your student's junior year to the end of their senior year. And that's called the financial base year. And that's what they'll go back to as far as looking at if they need to audit information or get financial information, that's the base year looking at. So keep that in mind. Doesn't mean you can't do things in the senior year to help your situation, or even after, quite frankly, they're in college. Because remember, you got to do this fast for each and every year. But ideally, if you're going to make some moves or do some adjustments, the ideal year is either the freshman or sophomore year. But obviously, each and every year, you need to do the FAFSA, and your child goes back to college, you can make adjustments to help your situation going forward. Make sure your tax professional is completely aware and require the required integration and coordination necessary between tax and college funding situations. Don't even think about filling out either your tax or college financial aid forms without doing proper planning first. Hence, have a plan. Have a plan going forward. It makes all the difference in the world instead of shooting from the hip. If I choose someone to help me, what questions would I ask them? Well, we put these up on the screen for you. This is a sample of a bunch of questions that I would make sure I would ask any professional you work with. Can they show you how to lower your EFC and maximize your eligibility for aid? Can you help me pick the schools that give me the best aid package and meet the most need, the more free money and less loans? Let's talk about this real quick. Picking the right school for my son or daughter. More importantly than anything in the financial paying for college situation is picking the right fit school. And that's why we harp on the fact that don't go by sticker price. It's all about where the child is going to fit in best. Now, if you come from a rural area in Nebraska or even upstate New York where you've got 40 or 50 kids graduating in class, and now your student is going to go to a Syracuse University or a UCLA where you have maybe 200 to 300 people sitting in a lecture hall, maybe not the right fit, maybe too much, or maybe it's the perfect fit for them, but you know your student. So it's very important to go out there and visit these schools and keep a scorecard. And we keep a scorecard because the first school is going to blend into the 10th school or 8th school, and you're not going to remember whether it was a good meal plan or a bad meal plan, or the dorm was horrible or the dorm was great, the people were friendly, they weren't friendly. Make sure you go in when they're open to get a real feel for the school, because I can tell you that the brochure of Buffalo State University looks beautiful, but maybe not so much when you're there. So keep that in mind. Can you help me fill out the FAFSA and the CSS profile form line by line? Remember, simple form, not simple form, the complex little tricks to it. Will you help me negotiate to get a better package than I expected from your school? Yeah, you want to make sure you have somebody who's going to work with you that's going to be able to do those things and advise you in the right steps to go about doing it. Can you show me how to pay for college on a tax-fair basis if I don't qualify for financial aid? Let's talk about that. There's a technique out there that we use for many of our clients that shows them how to use a system that we created to actually free them up. On average, the average family is freeing up about $24,000 to $25,000 a year by using this technique that they already have at their access and their disposal. They just didn't know it. And it's out there, but it's got to be certain families that qualify and know they can do it. So if you're going to go borrow money, wouldn't it be better to borrow from yourself or utilize it another way without going into more debt? So those things are out there. And make sure you ask those questions. What if I made too much money to qualify for need-based aid? Yeah, let's keep in mind tonight that we spoke, a lot of the things we were talking about today were really based on need-based aid. But it's not just about need-based aid. It's about there's many other planning strategies out there. How to get the best admissions strategy, how to get the best negotiated package strategy, how to fund for that I just brought up 2 minutes ago. How's the best way to fund for the college if I don't have all the money in the bank, right? Those things all come into play. There are many ways to skin a college. They call it the skin, CAS. They call it. There's so many other strategies out there, student positioning strategies, appeal strategies, many others. They're out there. Just know that they're out there. So don't give up hope. Right? There's ways to go about getting this done, and you'll be so much better for it. Okay, so what are my options? Your options are, listen, you can do it on your own. You can let your accountant do it for you, although I tell you we work with accountants every day and they'll be the first to tell you not my thing. But if they do it for you, make sure they understand the financial aid forms and formulas when they're filling out. Again, if you own a business, you absolutely need to get your CPA involved in this thing. Again, most accountants will tell you this is not my thing. I'd rather just do taxes. But keep that in mind. You can get it done by yourself, but listen, work with somebody. If you have any questions at all, I think the return on your investment is 10 times what you get out of it. Right? And make sure you have these questions for them. What exactly will you do for me? Will you help me do income and asset planning? Will you help me pick the best schools for my family and my son and my daughter? Will you help me fill out the forms? Will you help me negotiate with the schools? Will they offer guarantees? And I'll tell you right here at this point, I'll tell you, we don't necessarily give you guarantees, but one thing we do is we make sure that we're very selective in who we work with. And the reason is we can't help everybody. I probably talk to 200 or 300 people, or maybe 1,000 people a year when I was speaking all over the place. And a lot of times is we will not, and anybody who has any integrity will tell you that, in order to work with you, you have to make a significant difference. And that's how we run it. Listen, we can't do affect you impactfully financially and making sure you're getting so much more than you're giving, than we're giving. We won't work with you. We'll just say, listen, generally, and I'll tell you that we offer, and I'm getting you this, that, listen, we offer everybody that comes on this webinar today the ability to come in, spend an hour with us, whether it be a Zoom call or whether you want to come in person. We still do that, believe it or not. And we'll have you come in and we'll evaluate where your base is right now and what strategies you may be able to take advantage of today and maybe ones you may want to do tomorrow that'll help you in this process that could be beneficial. But normally, I'll tell you that when we meet with you for that hour, which 90% of the people take advantage of, we'll tell you, look, do this, this, and this, and you're fine, right? Again, unless we can make a significant impact for you and your family, we'll generally just say, listen, this is what you need to do, and you'll be fine. All right. So, what are your next steps? So, our mission for our clients is to, really take the administrative nightmare, which is literally countless opportunities and errors for families. Keep it out. Take that out of the scenario. Integrate a sound financial plan and strategies with the financial aid rules and regulations that exist today. And implement a college mission and financial aid strategy that makes sense for their child to attend their dream school. Make paying for school a little bit more easy and affordable. So I urge you, take advantage of the time that we're offering. Give us a call, email us. We can set up a Zoom call and so on and so forth. And then, again, how many are interested in knowing what your financial aid package may look like prior to? So we'll do that in the Zoom meeting. We'll look at where you are today. Again, I talked about what your base is and what we can figure out what your expected family contribution is right now based on the information you provide us. And then we can actually, if it makes sense, we can set you up on some strategies to take advantage and help you increase your chances of either getting your child enrolled into their dream school, and more importantly, having you figure out a strategy in order to pay for school when that time comes, okay? So if you want it, please give us a call set up a Zoom consultation. Our number's there, 845-651-3070, or you can email us at info@mileswm.com. We encourage you to take advantage of it, spend an hour, be well worth it, and we hope and pray that you get as much information out of this as possible within this time period that we had in order to do it. So God bless, take care, and hope you're all successful, and give us a call when you can. Take care.